So when we're asked to calculate this expression here, okay, we have to ask ourselves, well, what should we calculate first? So one way we kind of can think of this as is we can think of this as counting things. Okay, how do we count things? Well, naturally we would count groups of things first and then add on to those groups. And groups means multiplication and division. So really, when we do calculations, we should really do our multiplications and divisions first, because the reason is that they're more powerful calculating operations. And so we do the most powerful calculating operations first. So in that case, we do division and multiplication before addition and subtraction. It's important to note that division and multiplication are just inverses of each other. So essentially the same operation, but they undo each other. Addition and subtraction are also the same operations, and basically they undo each other as well. So when we have addition or subtraction, it doesn't really matter which one we do first. When it comes to exponents, though, exponents are more powerful than multiplication because they are groups of multiplication, whereas multiplication is groups of addition. So we should do exponents. We're going to do our most powerful operations first, and then the brackets are a way we can arrange things so that we can do, when we need to do the weaker operations first, we can arrange them in brackets so that we can make sure that they get done before the other operations. So BEDMAS stands for brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. Sometimes it's also known as PEDMAS. So in BEDMAS, we want to do brackets first. Okay, so the B stands for brackets. So when we do the brackets first, we're going to do the 4 plus 1. Now, the 4 plus 1 really is a fairly straightforward calculation. It's really not the important part of showing order of operations. What's the most important part is showing all the parts that don't get done. And that's important. If they're not shown, then you're missing the whole point of doing these order of operations. Okay, so we want to show that 3 minus times 2 does not get done. So inside we get the 4 plus 1, and I can see the 4 plus 1 equals 5. Please don't show me some calculation 4 plus 1 equals 5. I know 4 plus 1 equals 5. I want to see where that ends up though. And again, what's important is you need to show all these parts that don't get touched. Okay, none of this stuff is done, so that's the important part. You need to make sure you keep track of it. So I can see vertically all the parts from the top to the next line. And that's what I'll be looking for. The answer is more or less irrelevant. Okay, I'm going to assume you're going to get the right answer, but you need to show the steps of how you're getting there, and the way you show steps is keeping track of all the parts that don't get done. And that's going to be the most important thing that you're going to do when you're doing these problems. So the next one then is going to be exponents. E stands for exponents. Okay, so I'm going to do the 8 squares. So again, it's very important that you keep track of the 3 minus 2 times 5 plus 64. Here I can see the exponents now being applied. I don't need to show that calculation off to the side or anything. I want to see that embedded right in your work. And again, the most important part is showing all the parts that don't get done. Okay, so those are all the parts that don't get done. So then we move to the next step. Now, division and multiplication are really the same thing, so it doesn't matter which one we do first. So I'm going to write here division and multiplication. I'm just going to do the division and multiplication all in the same step. So I'm just going to skip a line here. So we end up with 3 minus, from here to here, I'm going to see the times being done. From the second line to the fourth line, I'm going to see the divide being applied. And again, what's most important is showing all the parts that don't get done. The 3, the plus 3 here, the minus 1. Okay, it needs to be kept track of. And same with addition and subtraction. I'm just going to do addition and subtraction. in one step because it doesn't really matter which one gets done first. Okay, so mathematically, it doesn't matter which one gets done first. So I'm just going to do it all in one step. So 3 minus 10 is negative 7, plus 32 is positive 25, minus 1 is going to be positive 24. So that's going to be my final answer. And I can see all the steps being done. Now you may want to do some of these in multiple steps. You can spread out the steps if you like. Sometimes we can compress steps. So as we get further in math, we need to start compressing steps. So here's another one here where we have our 6 plus 7 times 8. Well, we need to show the steps. We need to show that 6, the first thing we're going to do is a 6 times 7. That's our multiplication, and we can see that plus 6 has not been touched, but we keep track of it. Then we show the addition. So here, the first step is going to be our division. The division happens before subtraction. So we're going to divide first, then we're going to subtract. Okay, and again, you should be able to see all the parts from line to line. Okay, so we're going to end up with 0. Here, although multiplication is stronger than subtraction, because of the brackets, we do the brackets first. Okay, so we end up with 25 minus 11 times 3. We're going to do this as subtraction first. Now we do the times. Okay, so this is a multiplication. Okay, so 14 times 3 is 42. There's our final answer.